Hello everyone, hello. And it's going to be one of those video essays, rambles, and I haven't done one of these for quite a while, and I think the previous one might have been so long ago that I still had my beard. Well, a lot has happened since then. Beard is gone, that's one of the things. I've started working. But anyway, that is by the by, and you can catch up on all of that on one of my streams. So welcome in everyone. Today I'll just get straight to it. I'm going to be talking about this, my morning routine, and I've mentioned it and kind of given a sort of potted summary of it in some of my other videos, but I thought I'd make one that was specifically about my own morning routine and how it came about and where it's at the moment. So here are the things that I'm going to be talking about, so you've just got an idea of what's coming. And like I said, it's going to be one of those rambling ones. I don't really have much of a structure or a script. I've got some subheadings, so I'll talk around those things, but it is going to be long and rambling, so just be warned. It's probably easier to listen to, like if you put it on like faster speed. So if you put it on 1.25 speed or 1.5 speed. And I will put chapters in as well, so you can navigate your way through. But it started in 2019. So I'll start by talking about how my routine was before 2019, and then how the more structured version came about from 2019, and we're now halfway through 2023. So it's been going for a good 4.5 years and working well. And then it comprises of getting up early, that's the first thing, doing morning pages, then doing meditation, followed by reading, and then some kind of physical training. So I'll go into detail in all of those. So first of all, the getting up early, then morning pages, then I do a period of meditation, reading a book for a while with my cup of tea. This is actually water at the moment. And then finally some physical training. So let's start with looking at previous to 2019 and then what happened. So this is not an edited video. I don't know how to edit. I do want to learn, but I'm kind of doing it the same way that I do live streams, because that's what I'm used to. So before 2019, let's say like 2010. So I lived somewhere else before the place I'm living in now, and I moved in 2017. And prior to that, I lived somewhere from 2010 to 17. And during that time, other than morning pages, sometimes meditation, I didn't really have a morning routine as such. I didn't have a regular time to get up. And what I did was, if I look back, what I did was I tended to stay up quite late. I liked to stay up late till somewhere between 1:30 and 2 a.m. And what I did was play games, watch TV series, and because it was quiet, people had gone to bed, there was no sound of traffic, it wasn't noisy where I lived. and certainly wasn't as quiet as where I live now. But you just got this sense that you were with the night hours. So any time after 11 p.m, I guess, people go to work, have gone to bed. So you got this feeling that, you were a night person. And I liked that. And I liked to be doing stuff while people were asleep. So, I would play games, and I also used to eat a bit later into the evening, which I don't do now. And, I might come back to that. But I felt like once my food was finished, and maybe I was doing some kind of work, like I was still programming at the time, so I might be doing some work from home. And when that was done, I would get into playing a game, or watching a movie. And I might start watching a movie at, say, 10 p.m. And if the movie's, say, 2.5 hours long, midnight, I finish the movie, but still a bit early to go to bed. So then I'd put on a game. And because I was working freelance, so I was at the time doing yoga teaching, I was building bike wheels, which I still do now, and I was doing a bit of web programming, which you could do at any time. And the yoga classes were the only scheduled work shifts that I had. And they would be, the earliest would be 1:30 in the afternoon. I think that was my earliest class. I think that meant, I was just thinking back, did I have one at 11? But anyway, it meant that I never had to get up really early. So, if you've got a 9-to-5 job, then you have to commute and maybe get the train at 8. So you need to be up at 7. And that's like every single day. Whereas I didn't have that. I could get up later. And I took advantage of that by staying up late, and then didn't set the alarm. I would let myself sleep as little or as long as I needed. So it would be around 8 a.m, 8:30, 9, sometimes I'd wake up, because then I'd have handheld device like an iPad or phone. So once I'd gone to bed, I might still be scrolling Twitter or watching a bit of YouTube in bed. So I wouldn't be going to bed and going immediately to sleep. I would still be kind of consuming content in some way. And then gradually I'd start nodding and then go off to sleep. And then wake up at whatever time. And I did morning pages, which I've been doing since about 2001. And that was the only thing. So I'd get up, have a cup of tea, have a little wash, things that most people do. And then I'd settle down and do my morning pages. And I'll talk more in detail about that when we get to it. And what I felt was, on the one hand, that I was sort of on holiday. I was living my life in a kind of bohemian way. The way you kind of live when you're on holiday. So you go off to, south of France, Greece, Spain, and while you're on holiday, you get up whenever you like. You might have been out in the evening, and then there's no pressure on you to get up for work. And I thought, well, I'd adopt that kind of lifestyle myself. So I did. And it did feel good that I had a lifestyle which allowed me to do that. But at the same time, I did feel kind of behind the workday. So sometimes clients would be calling or emails would be coming in, but I felt behind. So on the one hand, feeling like, hey, look at me, I live my life as though I'm on holiday. But I didn't go to work, but I did still have work to do, which I had to manage in the hours that I had available for the day. So I still had to structure my day in a particular way. And as well as the work goals, say I had an order for bike wheels, I had to work on that and maybe do a bit. So I had the deadline wasn't get it done that day. I might have told the client, right, I'll get this done for you in a week. So I do a little bit of work on it that day, maybe a bit more the next day. And the same with the website work. There was a timeline, so I'd take a bit of the work. So I had to kind of schedule all of that myself, and then if there was a yoga class, then I'd have to travel to the class and then factor in the traveling time. Right, when am I going to eat? When am I going to work on the bike wheel? But then I had my own health to think about, my health and well-being, let's say. So things like physical training. So I was teaching yoga, I was cycling to and from the class, so I thought, okay, well, that's taking care of my fitness, but what about strength training? Yoga's not strength training, it's more flexibility. The cycling, maybe the cycling up hills is taking care of the strength, but, I still need to do some kind of upper body calisthenics or weightlifting or something. So when am I going to do that? And I did do it, but it would be a bit patchy. It would be so that I might be consistent for about 2 weeks, because they were scheduled ad hoc, and I'd end up kind of missing a lot. That's what happened. So as well as the work, my health and well-being schedule was not like super consistent. And that bothered me as well. So here I am living a so-called being on holiday, gentleman of leisure kind of lifestyle. But I still had goals. And as well as the work in order to make money to pay my costs, I still had projects. And I was sort of studying things, and it wasn't as consistent as I would like. And then I'd have like maybe 2 or 3 weeks of like consistent, being quite steady with it. And then there'd be a period where I just completely stop and just no progress at all. And that might go on for longer than the 3 weeks, and then I'd kind of realize that, oh, okay, how do I bring this back in? So that's what I mean by patchy. If you look through the year, you'd have like a little patch of, okay, I did it there. And I wanted I suppose, goal for all of my goals was that I would be consistent through the whole year, not just 2 or 3 weeks here and a few weeks there. And I didn't know how to do it. So at the time as well, I used to write a blog, and writing the blog was a way for me to keep up with my goals. So I'd set my goals for the month, and then at the end of the month I'd write a report, and that would be the blog of like, right, I've been working on this and this, and how is it going? And it was never as good as I was hoping or expecting, and that kind of disappointed me. But I still wasn't willing to let go of my sort of bohemian, I'm on holiday, gentleman of leisure. So I was trying to balance these two aspects, really, to feel like I'm just on holiday, doing what I feel like, but also kind of quite steady, quite organized, taking steps towards achieving things and completing projects, but without feeling like overworked, that my day was so full of stuff to do that I didn't have time for just chilling, like watching TV series and playing video games. And I felt like I was oscillating a bit. I was doing, because I felt, I'm kind of focusing a bit too much on leisure, then I'd swing the other way, and then now I'm a bit over-structured, so I take away the structure, and then but now I'm like, and I couldn't quite find, when I say balance, I don't mean half and half, I mean where it feels right to me, right? So it feels like I'm spending enough time on the projects that I really want to pursue, not forcing myself to do it, but because I wanted to do it. But you still have to make an effort, say doing a course, for example, like an online course. You still need to schedule time to do the exercises, watch the videos, whatever. So what happened? So that's pre-2019. After 2019, at the beginning of 2019, I started to get up early. And I was also reading a book. I don't know if it was around that time. Anyway, it's a similar time. And the ideas that I came up with myself, which I was calling the morning stack or the morning block, he was talking about in the book, and the book was called The One Thing by Gary Keller. And funnily enough, I came across that book from watching someone on YouTube talking about programming, and they were saying that, instead of studying this, a bit of that, just focus on one thing and like go deep into it. And that mentioned the book. So then I got the book, started reading the book. Wasn't quite convinced at the time, but now I see it now. The not having this huge variety of things. And kind of really focusing on one thing. But he talked about having like the very first part of your day, so the morning, set up so that the most important things, the things that really matter to you, they get done no matter what else happens during the day. And then he goes on to talk about willpower, and that if you're using willpower to get stuff done, and then it's in short supply, it runs out, it expires, you can't use that to help you get through the day, but there's enough of it to kind of get through like one or two things, like first thing in the morning, and then you've kind of run out. But if you get the most important things done early in the morning, then you feel like on top of it. And then whether you just spend your time playing games, spend your time like scrolling Twitter, it doesn't sort of matter, because at least you've done the thing that matters the most to you. And it could be a number of things. So say you got 4 things, you make sure you get those done. It's first thing in the morning, and then you're kind of free, as it were. So I already had my morning pages, which I'll come back to in a moment, because that's the first thing I do. And I have been doing that since 2001 when I read the book. And that's just carried on, and I've been very consistent and very steady with that. And apart from being ill or being hungover, it's very rare I'll miss that. It's like I can say pretty much 7 out of 7 I will do morning pages. But there were other things that I wanted to do and be consistent with, such as meditating. And I'd had a long gap, and I'll talk more about meditation. But yeah, in my 20s, I was like a very consistent meditator, did about 3 hours a day, every day. And then I think at my early 30s, I sort of stopped, and now I'm in my 50s. I sort of took it up again. So I wanted to make that part of my routine somewhere. And if I scheduled it later in the day, it was kind of 50-50 really. It may happen, it may not happen. And I wanted it to set up my routine such that it was not 50-50, it was more like 90-10. There was like a 9 out of 10% chance that it's going to happen. So that was another. So morning pages, meditation, and I'd say I didn't meditate at all, but I did sort of do it on and off. And then reading, and that was something I've been doing since, sort of late 90s, I guess. I had this real enthusiasm for reading literature and working my way through the classics. And again, it's something I scheduled for at some point in the day. And in 2012, I got a Kindle. So Amazon Kindle. And it was a great way to have all my books there in one place. But same thing, it was scheduled later in the day, so it didn't quite happen, like every single time. And then I had to schedule things like a reading day to try and get around it. But still, I wasn't entirely happy with my performance. And then the last thing that I am doing now is physical training, and they comprise of 3 things, I guess. There's flexibility, fitness, and strength. Those are the 3 things that you need to cover. And because I was teaching yoga, I thought, right, well, the flexibility side is covered, and I'm cycling to and from my classes, so the fitness is kind of covered as well. So the one thing I need to work on is strength training, and I guess that is out of those the most important one, whether it's doing push-ups and things like calisthenics, bodyweight type training. And I was not very consistent with it. Like I said, patchy. So I didn't want to get up early because, my lifestyle. I like my lifestyle. Sorry, itchy nose again. And it was hard to let it go. And what I found is getting up early was okay. It was the going to bed early that was hard. So I could set my alarm. I was doing these long distance rides. So between 2012 and 2016. By 2019 I'd already stopped doing that, but I was used to getting up very, very early, around sort of 5 a.m. to go on these long distance ride. So I'd have to get up, have some breakfast, get my bike ready, get my equipment ready, and sort of leave the house by, 5:45 maybe, so that I could get to the starting point whenever, maybe 7 or 8, whenever the I think it was 8 a.m. start, but I'd have to spend like an hour or so cycling from my house to the starting point. So once or twice a month I would be doing that, and I didn't mind it. I didn't mind setting the alarm, once in a while to get up early. But the night before that, I had to go to bed early, and that I didn't like. That I found a lot more difficult than the actual getting up early. And I read a few articles on it. I watched some YouTube videos of people saying, hey, the typical YouTube sensationalist style. I started getting up early, and here's what happened. Don't forget to hit subscribe and blah, blah, blah. And I watched a few of those, and, they were just talking about how their life had improved, or their productivity, or their well-being, various things had improved as a result of getting up early. And it's kind of, I guess, commonly known, healthy, wealthy and wise, early bird catches the worm, and so on. So I kind of pondered the idea, and typical me, being a scientist, I thought, well, hang on, let's just, not throw this out the window and say, nah, it's not going to work for me, or just force myself to do it. Let's just give it, 2-3 weeks, see how it fits, see how I react to it, and then decide whether it's something I can implement. So as it was the start of the year, and the start of the year is typically a time when people start to try things out, like work on their health and fitness, or give up alcohol or something. So I thought, right, let's give up staying up late and embrace getting up early. And January, therefore, it's winter in the UK here, and cold. So I thought, doesn't matter, let's just do it. It's that motivational time of the year. Everyone else is, trying something, trying to change and improve. So I thought, okay, let's do it. And I started with, I think, 6:30 or 7. Like at the moment, I'm getting up at 5. So I thought, right, let's start gently. It's still going to be a lot earlier than I normally get up. And yes, the going to bed early was definitely harder. The getting up early was fine. I felt a little bit groggy and felt like I could sleep a bit longer, but it didn't really bother me. It just, like I said, felt like one of those bike ride days. And I gradually got accustomed to it. It didn't take long. It was 2 or 3 weeks, and I thought, I think I can keep this going longer. And it was the same as this idea of, okay, everyone's gone to bed, so it's all nice and quiet, even though I'm living alone, so it doesn't really matter. But I just got this sense that everyone's sleeping, so I've got the world to myself to do what I want, kind of thing. But it felt like that in the early hours as well. It's like, okay, people are getting up to go to work, but not everyone. Some people get up super early, but most people are going to be getting up around 7, and then they're just going to be getting themselves ready, whereas I'm going to be working on my own health and well-being. And I thought, all right, let's find an order for this, which is the best way to do this. And as I was already doing morning pages, I thought, right, I'll put that one first. And then, the morning pages is kind of like a brain dump. So then meditate. And then meditation essentially is just doing nothing. So a period of just nothing. Then make myself a cup of tea and do my reading. And I'd read for like an hour, so depending on how long the chapter was, or if there was a need to kind of finish by like a certain time. And then once my reading hour, or reading a little bit less than an hour, a bit more than an hour was done, then I'd go on to my weightlifting, whether that was a combination of bodyweight exercises and, I've been doing kettlebells. That's been my main thing at home. So, no need to like go to the gym. And because I've been in the fitness industry, if you like, I'm kind of quite motivated that way. But here was a slot in the day that was always available. It was a little bit harder to train first thing in the morning, but again, I got quite used to that. And now that's just the norm. And it started with 6:30, 7. And then as the year progressed, 2019, and the days started getting longer, I found, well, let's make it 6 a.m. And then, in the summertime, the sun's already up around 4:30, and I found that getting, after a, say, month, and then I made it 5:30, then I made it 5, and in the summer, I was just waking up naturally around 4:30 and found, this is absolutely fine. I can just get up and start my day. No problem at all. And then by kind of June, July, it just stuck. And what I found was that in comparison to getting up whenever I wanted to, and not really having a fixed slot in the day for these things, the probability of me doing it was a bit 50-50. Now it was just like 100%, pretty much. It was very, very rare. When I talked about the morning pages, how it was just like 7 days a week, other than being ill or being hungover or having to go on a trip or something. I always did it. And then the other things became like that as well. So meditation just always happened. Reading a book always happened. It wasn't like, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. It's, I will always do it, and I know that I'll always do it. So the main ingredient for this, for me, that changed everything, is the getting up early. And that's why I've kind of stayed here before going into the actual activities. And you could structure your day how you like, based on the things that you feel are most important to you and you want to make sure that they get done. So it could be, say, letter writing. If you've got, say, people that are important to you and you want to write to them in the old way with pen and paper, but the day runs away with you. So create a slot at the beginning of the day, and then you've got an hour or something where you're just focused on writing a letter to a friend or a relative. And then the phone calls and the emails, things that distract you, start coming in, or you get on with your work. I'm kind of focused on the well-being side of things, but you can do whatever you like. And for me, the getting up early is what changed the rules, really, and changed it from maybe it's going to happen to it's definitely going to happen. And I felt I could rely on it. That was the big change that happened, is that I knew at that beginning of the day. So now it's 5 a.m. And between 5 a.m. and say 8 a.m. So I do my morning pages, which is about half an hour, 40 minutes, depending on how fast I'm writing. Then I'll meditate for 10 or 15 minutes. So I was using this app called Waking Up by Sam Harris. Highly recommended, but it is a paid one. If you're super broke, you can get in touch with him and say, look, I can't afford it, but I really want to use this for meditation. He's willing to waive the fees, but it's not that. It's like £50 for a year. So, and there's loads of talks and things on there, but a lot of the meditations are just 10 minutes. So that's what I do. And sometimes I do the other courses on there. And then just, follow a guided meditation. So that would take me up to, say, 6 o'clock. I made my cup of tea, grab a book, and then the book would take me up to, say, 7 a.m. 7 a.m, then I'd get myself ready for training, and that's been different things. I had a phase of going for a walk from 7 till 8, and then come back, then lift weights, or other times I'd lift weights and then go for a short walk. At the moment, I'm alternating between skipping rope, and weightlifting. But I'll get into each of the things that I do. But your morning block can comprise of anything you like, anything that you feel is the most important for you, that you want to make sure you get done no matter what. And then the rest of the day you can feel like I've ticked that off, kind of thing. I've put some pennies into my well-being bank account, sort of thing, and then it's like earning interest. So, yeah, the importance to me then of getting up early, and now that was the big change. So let's talk about the first thing that I do, which is morning pages. And the name Morning Pages comes from a book called The Artist's Way. And The Artist's Way is a book by Julia Cameron, and it's for creative people, not necessarily people who are full-time creative people. You can be a creative person by not necessarily being an artist or a sculptor or a musician. You can still use a lot of the exercises and the techniques that she talks about in the book. So there's like a 12-week course or something. I can't remember how long it was, and each of the weeks there were like other exercises. There was something called the artist date, where you'd have a day or half a day free to just go off and do whatever, really, and allow yourself to just have some fun. Like I'd do things like visit a certain museum, or one day I was just sawing logs, something that really engages you in a way that you kind of don't normally do day to day. Anyway, if you want to follow up on that, definitely check out Julia Cameron and The Artist's Way. But the one thing that then carried on after I'd followed the course in the book was the morning pages. And the morning pages comprises of writing a sort of stream of consciousness. And in the book, she talks about writing 3 sides, something like A4. So in the UK, A4, I think, is like a legal pad or something in the US. And I found while I was doing the 12-week course, the 3 sides was fine, because I was in that kind of, right, I'm doing this course, this is part of it, and the idea was that you just write. The next kind of sentence that comes into your head. And it doesn't, you're not actually writing, it's not literature. You're just writing whatever is there. So it might be, oh, why am I doing this? I'm sitting here. Am I sitting on my left side too much? I kind of feel like my back's hurting. Is it pain? I don't think it is pain. So it's just this kind of internal dialogue, but you're actually writing it down. And I found a good compromise for me was 2 pages, as the 3 was more like 45 minutes, which I found is a little bit too long to kind of factor into the day. But taking a sheet of lined A4 paper and then writing both sides of that, it's about half an hour, or a little bit more than half an hour, and I was able to fit that into my day. And I found, as I've said, that I've been able to keep it up for the last 22, 23 years. So I'm fine. And what is the benefit of that? What is the point of doing that? Well, what I've found is that it allows you to just take what's there. So the first thing in the morning, you kind of dump everything onto the page. And if you do read it back, I'm kind of reading it as I'm writing it. So I don't then stop and read it through. But there'll be patches which are just gobbledygook, like I'm staring at the table. I'm still staring at the table. I don't like this table. Should I get rid of this table? And then you'll get these kind of coherent passages. It may be about some kind of problem you've been having, something that's been bothering you, and you'll find that as you're writing, you start to look at it from different angles. And you might have that same thing coming up day after day after day. You might be writing shopping lists, you might be composing an email for a few sentences, and then, you're off to something else like, oh yeah, I should go shopping today, shouldn't I? I don't really want to go shopping. What if I didn't go shopping? What would happen? Could I order online? No, I don't like ordering online. All right, I'll go shopping, but maybe I'll go later. And then, you're planning the day, and then you'll get these little nuggets of sort of mini insights, and mini kind of penny dropping moments will happen. And then I've found things like a more kind of knotty problem that I can't quite get to grips with. Day after day I'm writing about it, and then there'll be some kind of breakthrough with that. And then see, that's what's been bothering me. And, I'll find a more elegant or eloquent or articulate way of explaining what's going on. And it'll reflect from the page back to me. And then I'll realise that, okay, that's the next step. Or I'll just have an idea of something to work on, like I've been talking about this getting up early. So something's been bothering me, I'm writing about it, and then I get an idea of, well, maybe you could try this. Well, that sounds like a stupid idea, I don't even want to try that. Yeah, but, haven't you heard that getting up early is really good? Is it really good? Then as soon as I finish, I start researching it. So it can take you in directions that you wouldn't have thought of. And where's it all coming from? It's just all coming from you. So I found that it's a nice way to just dump all of this stuff that's going round and round, but also to make better sense of it. And time and again, it's just helped in that way, helped me to understand myself. So in terms of like a well-being and like an ongoing I don't know, like a personal advisor, like kings and princes, they had their sort of personal advisor. It's a bit like I'm creating one on the fly and they disappear. So they're there for that half an hour. And it's like an imaginary person is there that I'm talking to. And then they're gone. So for me, it's been very valuable. I encourage you to try it. And a bit like me, you might want to give it like 2 or 3 weeks. And at the end of that period, then decide. It is important that you do it the very first thing that you do. So before you've had a chance to kind of have a look at emails or read the newspaper or check the headlines, make a phone call, it's like you get up, don't do anything else. Your brain is in that state of I've just woken up. That's the time to do it before it gets sort of polluted or infected. So yeah, I heartily recommend it. But yeah, you don't kind of think of it, oh, I need to take it up, or I don't want to take this up. Give it a couple of weeks. Do it every morning or every other day. And it should be long enough. A couple of weeks should be long enough for you to see, is this still worth doing for me, or nah, this doesn't really work for me. All right, let's go on to meditation. And this is something that is obviously highly, especially in this day and age, where we don't see it as like an esoteric kind of hippie thing. A lot of people are, even in business, are meditating, and in all kind of types of jobs and disciplines, people see how important it is. So if you're one of those people that know that meditation or meditative exercises, mindfulness can help you, and you want to implement it in your life, then again, I'd suggest this slot, having a slot in the day, again, early, certainly works for me. And then you know that you can be consistent with it. So in my 20s, so I joined, when I went to university, which would have been going on 19 years old, there was a club, there's a meditation group, so I joined that, and I think I went once a week, and maybe then I'd practice on my own maybe once or twice, so nothing major. But then I started to go to the center. There was a Buddhist, so they were coming from the Buddhist center and then doing a little group once a week at the university campus. So I started to go to the center, and then that motivated me to do more, and then gradually got involved more and more with that group, that Buddhist movement, and ended up doing quite a lot of meditation, and did get up early at the time, but I didn't find it as easy as I do now. At that time in my 20s, because I was kind of going out in the evening and stuff that young people do, it wasn't easy, but I kind of did work at it, and had a period kind of pretty much all through my 20s. It wasn't super consistent, but I'd say still pretty like 80% there. I'd be getting up at sort of 6ish, doing like this. I'd do this Tibetan practice, like prostration. And then I'd kind of go back to the group of people I was living with and do like another hour of meditation with them. And then there was other meditation during the day. So I'd end up doing sort of 2.5, 3 hours every day. But I did live a lifestyle at the time where it was possible to do that. Gosh, my throat is really drying up. And that would have been during the 90s. So yeah, my 20s were sort of during the 90s. And towards the end of the 90s, I was still meditating a bit, but it had gone from like 2.5, 3 hours down to like maybe half an hour. And I'd go on these meditation retreats where you'd be doing like 6-7 hours a day. Not in one block, but an hour here, then do something else, another hour there. And I then moved to London and gradually drifted away from it for the next kind of 20 years, I guess. So that was my 20s. Then I turned 30 years old. And I think I might have been like 31 or trying to think back how old I was. But yeah, so from age 30 till about age 50, I didn't really do any meditation. I'd have phases of it which would last maybe 2 weeks, and then I just wouldn't do anything again for another 6 months. And that was like 10-15 minutes a day. And then when I started again, it was through a friend who was watching me, who was there. He wasn't meditating himself. He liked the idea of it and admired me for doing it, but he was kind of very on the fence about it. And he started meditating at age 50 or 51, 52, whatever. And it was interesting because I'd stopped by then and he was taking it up, and then he was telling me, well, you used to do it, and I always thought it was important, and yet I never really took the plunge. But now I am, and I've been using this app, and I really like Sam Harris, and I like listening to his talks, and now he's brought out this meditation app. And he recommended it to me, so then I got the app and thought, okay, why not? If this helps me to get my meditation practice started up again after a 20-year break, then why not? And it worked. It worked. I felt like, I've never flown a plane, but this is how I imagined it. Like, I used to be a pilot. And, you're inside the cockpit, you've got all these switches and levers and knobs, but you know how everything works. That one does this. And when I used to meditate, I felt like that, okay, this feeling is arising, then that will lead to this. I was kind of, okay, that is physical sensation. That's going to then lead to this particular state. Which direction am I taking my mind towards? What do I need to encourage? What do I need to discourage? So I kind of liken it to being in the cockpit of a plane. I know exactly where I want to go. Right, trim. Okay, let's climb a little bit more. All right, let's relax the shoulders now. I just had a real sense of everything that was going on. And, little tweak here, little tweak there. Okay, my jaw muscles a little bit too tight. Let's relax there. Straighten the back a bit. Okay, there's some anger arising. All right, let that just arise. So I just felt like completely on top of it all. And it just felt a bit like coming back into this cockpit and like, okay, I kind of remember that button. I don't know what it does. And then it's like, oh, that's turning on the lights. Okay, I thought that was over there. It's like slowly reacclimatizing myself. But yeah, I just followed the guided meditation on the app. And then I did that for maybe 2 years or 3 years, and then thought, well, I used to meditate. I used to teach meditation. I don't need the app. I can just do my own thing. So that's what I'm doing now. And even though it is just 10 or 15 minutes, I still find it very valuable. Every now and then I do find myself, feeling the need to do a bit more, but it's fine. It's consistent. And I know that every morning, those 10 or 15 minutes will be spent meditating, doing some kind of exercise that I've learnt or I've taught as well. And it helps me to then take that into the rest of the day, to not just, right, I've got this little slot where I'm meditating and then I'm kind of, right, forget, not really using what I'm learning there for the rest of my day. Like, oh, I learned to relax my shoulder. Oh, okay. I can use that at any time during the day now. But anyway, the details of meditation, how it works, how it can benefit you. I could talk about that for hours and hours and hours, but let's leave it at that. So, reading next. And I said that earlier that I had a Kindle. You don't have to get a Kindle, just a book. And early 2000s, when I moved to London, and the late 90s, I got quite heavily into literature, and especially like classic authors. So, Dickens, Dostoevsky. I read through Thomas Hardy, and what I do is take like all of the books by that author. When I moved to London in 99, I think it was, early 99, I was reading George Eliot at the time, so I kind of went through all her catalogue. Yeah, in case you didn't know, George Eliot is a pseudonym or pen name for Marianne Evans Cross. But anyway, I went through one book at a time in that author's catalogue, if you like. And it wasn't every day. I did get through the book, but I'd read a bit more one day, a bit less the next day. It wasn't like I've got a slot from 6 till 7 every morning where I read. And you'd think, so once I'd got this slot from 2019, you wouldn't think that just reading for an hour would allow you to get through a lot. But, I'm not like a fast reader. I'm not really an avid reader, as in I'll read at other times of the day. But I wanted to have a consistent available slot so I could, go through it. And I found that I was actually getting through more material by having that hour, a bit less than an hour, a bit more than an hour every single day, than reading a lot one day. Because I used to do these things called reading days. So once a month, it was a bit like the artist's date. I'd take my book and then I go to a coffee shop, sit there and read for a bit, and then I might go for a walk after that, sit in a park and read. So overall I might read for like 3 or 4 hours, and then I'd end up missing the day sometimes, or I'd have the book but I'd be feeling a bit sleepy, so I'd end up, watching YouTube or something on my phone. And I sort of relied on it as a day when I'd get my reading done. And then even though I'd have time on other days, I wouldn't use it. I'd think, not now. And then I went through these phases of saying, okay, we'll just read a paragraph. And then by reading a paragraph, it would kind of warm me up to reading more. But it wasn't a consistent method. It sort of worked half the time, not all the time. Whereas now, because I've got into this habit, I know that I will be reading, and I can just rely on it. And as well as the book, so at the moment I'm reading Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens for the third time, and I read aloud, and that's another thing that I find really important. And if you go back to Dickens's time, Victorian period, they were reading aloud. It was a thing. In most families, one person would be nearest the main light, the lamp, the brightest one, and they'd be reading the book, and everyone else would be listening. Many people were illiterate, so even Dickens himself would be writing the book so that it would sound good read aloud, and he was thinking of that while he was writing it. And then to make the book more affordable, he kind of broke it into chapters and released them as supplements or weekly installments. And then you'd have like this auditorium where people would get together, and he would read the book. He would read it aloud. So that tradition has sadly kind of gone, and I'm trying to bring it back myself. And since 2019, I think previously as well, but certainly 2019, and in 2015 I did do a little bit of audiobook, actually reading for audiobooks. So somewhere in between the 2015 and 2019 I'd already started to read aloud if I can, if I'm in a quiet place. I wouldn't be able to do that on the train, for example. And I've got more and more used to like capturing the author's way of writing and really kind of entering into the author's frame of mind and their viewpoint. And it could be that sense of being in an auditorium and listening to the reader, or it could be like sitting around a campfire and someone telling a story. And if you go back before writing, stories were told through an oral tradition, and the bard or the storyteller would come and tell you, and then gradually that would be passed on to someone else, and then that someone else would tell the story. And then when we meet and talk to each other, what do? We tell stories to each other. And a book is just a very, very long story, a novel, say. And as well as novels, I did mention classic authors, classic literature, but I've also read, scientific works like genetics and things like Dan Dennett, Consciousness Explained, and things like Susan Blackmore's Meme Machine, lots of Richard Dawkins. So I've had phases of reading other non-fiction books. But the same thing, I'd sit down with my cup of tea, and if it's early in the morning, I've got my lamp on the book, and it's a bit like I've gone into that Victorian era, and I'm reading aloud, looking at the punctuation and thinking, right, when the author was writing this, how would they have said it? Or, I become my own audiobook. And audiobooks have certainly become a thing lately. So it's nice to hear someone read to you, but you can do that yourself. You can just pick up a book and read a couple of paragraphs aloud and just see how it feels. And it's a bit slower, but I don't know, for me it brings it alive a bit. And the vocal exercise of saying the sentences aloud, of breaking it up according to the punctuation, gives it a certain, life, really. The life that the author, the time that they spent putting these phrases together, I just feel you can capture yourself if you read aloud. And if there's no one around and it's quiet, I'd say give it a go. I think you'll find a different side of reading. And in my new job, I've got a new job about a month ago. I'm going to be doing this with a group of people in a few months' time, so I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, so that was reading, and rambling along. We've gone past the hour mark now. Okay, here we go. So after I finished reading, then, I go and wash up my cup, brush my teeth. And at the moment, I've had, different variations of this. At the moment, I'm doing a sort of alternate between, I'm not cycling anymore, I've really gone off cycling. So for just over a year, in order to work on my fitness, I started doing skipping rope, and I've been alternating that with my kettlebell resistance training. And I've had phases where I've done more of that. I'm doing lots of swings and get-ups. And now I'm not doing any swings and get-ups. I'm doing pull-ups and deadlifts and single-arm presses with the kettlebell. So if I'm going out, then I'll get my skipping rope. I've got this little device that counts the jumps, which I pair with the phone, and then get a bottle of water, and then go to the park. And I've got a spot there that I go to. I've put it on YouTube as well, one of my skipping rope sessions. Just got inspired by watching other people on YouTube doing skipping rope, also on Instagram Reels. I don't bother with any of the tricks that they do. I just do a steady. I just go for volume. So I had a phase where I was just going for the numbers, and I was doing 3,000 jumps. So I'm kind of there. I do a little bit of jumping side to side and the side swing, but I'm not really into the tricks and things. And I like it. I like the steadiness of it. Boom, 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 boom. And getting up, being out of the house fairly early and finding a spot in the park. And I'm go to Crystal Palace Park, and it's a high spot where the transmitter is, and you get a beautiful view of southeast London. And then I'll walk back again. I'll quite often chat to a friend because I'll have my headphones on, have music on, and I can chat to a friend on the phone on the way home, as long as there's enough battery left. But yeah. And then the other days I'll be, at the moment I said I'm doing them pull-ups, weighted pull-ups, and single arm presses. But I've had phases where I've worked with the gymnastic rings. I just hang them from the pull-up bar. I've just done bodyweight training. But same thing, in the past I've scheduled it for like the middle of the day, like, right, I'll do a bit of work, do some emails, work on some wheels, contact some clients, etc. And then I'll do my training. But as it's the middle of the day, it's like it wasn't always happening. I mean, it was, but same thing, it was a bit patchy. and I could end up missing it. But now as in end of July 2023, between beginning of 2019 to now, it's like 1% chance that I'm going to miss it. Because that slot is there, because I'm in the habit of doing it, it just happens, and I can rely that I will get this done. And one of the things I'm really proud of is increasing the amount of weighted pull-up I can do. So initially it was like I've got this small 6 kilogram kettlebell, and I was sort of struggling with that. I just tie it around my waist, and then I'd do the pull-up. And then I started adding bottles of water to that to make it a little bit heavier. And now I've got to the 16 kilogram kettlebell. It's like beyond my expectations. Now you can see, like, I don't look particularly big or muscly, and it's a thing called wiry strength. It's this Russian trainer called Pavel Tsatsulin, and he's focused on pure strength. So you're not trying to get big or muscly, but at the same time you are getting a lot stronger. And the fact that I can tie this 16 kilogram weight around my waist and pull myself up, but really steadily, not like swinging around, like completely, like very carefully up to my throat, hold. Don't do that many, like do 3 or 4 times, and then as soon as I can do 4, I bump the weight up. But that has come through doing it, being consistent, and doing it not every morning, but every other morning. So one day I'm out in the park, and the same thing with the skipping rope. I started a little bit over a year ago, and I found it hard to even do like 15 seconds, and then I had problems with my Achilles tendons, and then I had problems with my back, and gradually they just, I took some rest, came back to it, to finding it difficult to do 15 seconds, to then gradually going on to being able to do 3,000 jumps in a session. It's like, this is what you can achieve. And look at, I'm mid-50s. This is what you can achieve by having a consistent routine. So that is really what this is all about, is having results that you can rely on, and feeling confident that you will achieve it. And it's not this kind of willpower, or if you put your mind to it. For me anyway, what I've found is if I put that slot in the morning and set it in motion, it will just keep going by itself. And I'm just surprised that it's still working. That, I kind of have to pinch myself and think, I used to dream about this. In my kind of early 20s, I used to dream about having such consistent routine that just happens, it just works, as Todd Howard would say, if you know what. Talk about him anymore. Anyway, it just works. That's kind of ironic, because in his case it doesn't work. But I can rely on this to such an extent that it's like those exercises where those trust that they do on those team building things, you let yourself fall backwards and your colleagues catch you. I kind of feel like that with this routine, that I set it up, I just let myself fall, as it were. And something that in Atomic Habits he talks about, that you fall to your habits. So whatever is happening in my life doesn't matter in a way. I know that I'll get up at 5 and I'll do these things because they're like established. I never need to sort of question whether I'll do it or not. I know that I will. And it's not like maybe I will, maybe I won't, which is how it used to be. This is there's no doubt I will get up and do these things. And I think that if there are things in your life that you want to do and you're kind of a bit disappointed that they're not happening, maybe you could also think about getting up earlier. Like, you might need to get up for work at 7. Try getting up at 6, and then you've got an hour to focus on something that's really, really important to you. Like I said, it could be writing letters to friends, it could be meditating, it could be just doing like a few push-ups and planks and things. And then you know that hour's there, you know you're going to get that done, and then you know that there's something that's really important to you that you don't need to worry about whether you do it or not. You know it's going to get done. And then you can rely on it for your health and your well-being and just your general level of confidence of your life going well. I think I've kind of said as much as I wanted to say. And my throat is drying up. It doesn't normally dry up because I do stream, and I'm on stream for 4 or 5 hours and talking a lot. Just a bit different today. But anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking with me this far. It's been another rambling chat about my morning routine, but I think it could be a morning routine for you, or it could be some other kind of routine. But having a structure that you can, hooks that you can hang things on in your day that is consistent, I think will help you to achieve more than you feel that you can achieve now. And good luck with it. And as they say, comment below and I will answer. And yeah, follow me on Twitch, because that's I'm not doing as much Twitch as I used to, but if you want to catch me live and then just chat, I'm alive. I'll be live some days on Twitch playing games, but still chatting a lot. Yeah, so good luck with it, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now. Have a good rest of your day. See you again soon. Oh, that wasn't stop. This is the stop.